Okay, we're going to call to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, May 15th, 2013. We will start with pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brady is not here. Mrs. Bianco will be late. Mr. Cavanero.
Here.
Mrs. Homer here. Mr. Kisco.
Here.
Mr. Marola.
Here.
Mr. Nargi.
Here.
Mr. Rivero.
Here.
Mr. Chabot.
Here.
Mr. Traub.
Here.
Mrs. Batchelder. Here. Mrs. DeMonico. Here. Mr. Jocelyn.
Here.
Mrs. Clacco. Here. Mayor Bingham. Austin Kelson not here. Kevin Finn not here. Rachel Kelly not here.
Thank you. Public participation. The board invites members of the community to speak on topics to be addressed in the agenda or on other topics of interest. Individuals wishing to make comments are requested to fill out the speaker sign-up sheet located on the front table. You shall include your name and address, which must also be stated at the beginning of your comment. The board will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. Courtesy is expected in this limited public forum. Participating time will be limited to 3 minutes per person and 10 minutes overall to guarantee an efficient operation of the meeting.
We have no sign-ups.
We have no sign-ups. That makes it very efficient. Okay, can I get a motion for approval of the agenda? Go Dan and Chris. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? We are on fire. Informational sharing.
Well, I would like to ask David Chmielewski to please come forward.
Beating me up?
We've got to get you on television, David.
Oh, he's a natural.
Oh, no. David is here tonight because the Secretary of State, Denise Merrill, sponsored a competition for Connecticut fifth grade students on Connecticut inventions this year. Students were to select a Connecticut invention, research it, and both assess and conclude the importance of it to our state and how the impact of it still felt today. Armed with this information, they were to write a 5-paragraph essay. They worked on this important aspect of Connecticut history and social studies in the talented and gifted classroom. From Karen Chick, I am proud to announce that TAG student David Chmielewski won 2nd place in the 5th Congressional District. David wrote about the invention of the helicopter. There will be a ceremony at the Capitol to celebrate the winning submissions, which will be held this Friday at 1:30 p.m., on which I am planning to be there. So are you planning to be there, Christopher? I'm sorry, David, Christopher. I'm looking at somebody else. Sorry, Christopher, are you planning? David, are you planning to be there?
Yeah.
Good, okay. I promise not to embarrass you that day, okay?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Flacco, if I may, I would just like to add, this is late breaking news. David has also just won the Tar Wars poster contest at the state level and has been invited to attend the national convention in Washington, D.C. this July. So we are very proud.
Would you like to say a few words, David?
Not really.
I have a question for you.
David, wait, now you're going to be put on the hot seat.
No. Congratulations. How did you pick, why did you pick history helicopter?
I don't really know. It just seemed like a good topic to me.
That's fantastic. You know they were invented, obviously you know they were invented in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge, tremendous advance in technology in the state. And I'm really proud that you picked that. Not only did you win with it, but you picked a topic that is very important for the state. Congratulations.
And you have a copy of David's essay in your packet, so enjoy. Thank you. Also in your packet, you have a list of several high school students who participated in Youth Service Day. And I won't read them all aloud, but I think when you think about our high school students and giving back to the community, these students put in several hours of work in many, many different areas to many different organizations. And when you look at it, the list, it's really a magnificent list. And it really says a lot about, are we nurturing our students to become citizens of a greater community? And I think from their work and their example, it's pretty explicit that we are. So that list you'll find. They were recognized on April 16th.
Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item is discussion of the 2013-2014 budget. We went before the Board of Finance last week. I would like to commend the board for their efforts. We were admonished for, I think, our greatest asset. We were told that we spent too much time during this budget focusing on education, and that was a downfall of ours, and I thought that was kind of an upside of what we're supposed to do, but I would like to thank us all for the time that we put in focusing on education. Mr. Lemoyne on the Board of Finance announced that we spent too much time on education.
We did this committee
the
or
Board
the
of
town?
Ed.
does?
No, this board.
Yes.
This board spent too
Board of
much time during this
Education.
budget process focusing on education and not focusing on cuts. It's an interesting perspective, isn't it?
Well, makes no sense, but.
Well, we were cut $488,507 by the Board of Finance on Thursday. On Friday, your board leadership sat down for the third time in this budget cycle with our bargaining units, asking for some level of concession to try to save jobs. I am happy to say that one of our bargaining units, which we have, stepped forward and met a concession. And the way it was laid out to everybody, we had the concessions to try to save a person within their own ranks. The administrators were the only ones to come forward and accept and to give us a concession. So you will see on the list of reductions, there are no administrative positions on the list of reductions. By stepping forward with a concession, they were spared the cut. This was laid out to all the bargaining units that it was not our intention to lose any staff. It was not our intention to impact class size or quality of care provided to the kids at Torrington. The Administrative Association is going to give up their SMART goals for this year in lieu of any. The SMART goal reward. Is that a good word?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. They're still going to try to meet their SMART goals, I hope. They're going to give up the bonus that they get for reaching their SMART goals. I would like the board to accept that.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Any discussion about it? All
Thank
those-
you.
Yeah, so by giving up the 1%,
Yep.
that's a total reduction of $19,147.
That's correct.
And what is their, I guess, entire operating budget or expenditure that this bargaining unit is their budget is $1,914,000? How much?
Do you have your budget book?
1%. That-
1%.
It's, how do you, just the logic, I'm not saying agree, disagree, just what's the logic that 1% or $19,000
We set,
Should save $120,000 position.
it saved $104,000 assistant elementary principal was what was on the board. We gave each bargaining unit, we went through possible options. We were criticized at the city level for not having buy-in from our bargaining units in this budget. Your board leadership sitting here sat down with them 3 times, each unit independently the first time, then all the bargaining units in a lump the second time, and then again, everybody in a lump the third time. You were asking for some level of buy-in to save a job. Our proposal to them was stipends, longevity, and SMART goal bonus. All told, it added up roughly to what we needed, the $350,000 in staffing reductions. None of them equaled an actual position.
Right, and what I guess my point is, in my evaluation of these reductions, and for example, if you're going to eliminate 1 classroom teacher, 1 custodian.
We didn't get to that yet.
What I'm trying to get at though is, you're making it sound like their 1% or $19,000, 147, should save 1 administrator. And I don't see how that 1% saves 1 administrator.
We were $19,147 short on meeting the salary of an assistant elementary school principal.
Okay.
They made that concession. We now have enough money in the budget to pay for that assistant principal.
Yeah, but you make it sound like we don't need to have another assistant principal at the high school, hypothetically. To me, if you were going to cut a position, if you were going to bargain with a group to save a position, that dollar amount should actually be the value of that position, not some random number, which is 1%, which is great that they came to the bargaining table, which the other groups evidently didn't. But I still think the board should evaluate whether or not the district can get by with 1 less administrator somewhere versus weigh the value of 1 classroom.
Can we get to the rest of those in a minute? We're talking about this agreement. We haven't gotten to the rest of the cuts yet.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, put the agreement aside, we'll go down the list of cuts, and then you can go back to your shopping, all right?
We have a motion sitting on the table, Mr. Trump. We must vote on the motion.
Sorry. All those in favor of accepting the concession, or was there any further discussion? You had said thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Will this affect if we, if the board does decide on what Mr. Nerdy is talking about, if we did make a cut to administrator, does this affect that possibility? I'm not saying that I would support
Yes.
that. This affects that.
Yes.
So by voting on this, we can't make that decision.
It was a quid pro
Yes.
quo, in other words.
Yes.
That
It
we
was
agreed,
make a
we said
concession
we will
and
not
save
cut
the
an
check.
administrator
Yeah.
for 100-something thousand if,
If you met your, you want to table this motion?
Mr. Trump, it's on under approval items, so we can wait until
Okay.
the next section.
All right.
Then I will
Want to
rescind
withdraw?
my motion.
You want to amend it or table it, or you want to withdraw it?
I'll withdraw it momentarily.
Okay. Ellen, will you withdraw your second? The meeting we had with the different unions was to save a job. You made a concession. If you met your concessions, we were not terminating a position. Each union was going to lose a position if they didn't meet the concessions. Without meeting the concessions, we are going to lose 1 classroom teacher, 1 secretary, 1 custodian, 1 para, 1 nurse, and 1 captain. We tried 3 times to get buy-in from the groups. The city was pretty upset with us on Thursday that we didn't get some type of buy-in from our bargaining units towards this budget, so the offer was extended. The other areas that we are proposing for a reduction is elimination of 1 guidance counselor at the high school, which was originally proposed by the superintendent, that she did not feel that it was needed at this time. The, he's got moved around. The elimination of Torrington Middle School athletics, the reduction of instrumental music, and the reconfiguration of the TAG program. I'd like to explain the bottom two for a minute. The reason those are on there is the TAG teacher has retired. It is just a non-backfill of a position. The money is still in the budget for the materials for the TAG program. This is just that position not getting refilled. Our goal was, when the three of us sat down with the unions, was to try to keep every family in Torrington working. The reason the music is on there is 1.4 music teachers have taken jobs elsewhere. So that is not a reduction in staff. That is just not backfilling positions of people that have already left or have told us that they are leaving. I met with the music department this afternoon at their request, and with some management changes at different elementary schools, they can do music with the staff that they would have. So they're not upset about that reduction if we can get a realignment of the way the elementary schools do music. TMS athletics, and well, the guidance counselor was already in the superintendent's budget. Other alternative reductions we came up with was an ESL tutor at Southwest, the elimination of the pre-K teacher and 3 pre-K paras. We did a little presentation for the city on that. The problem with that is if we know we have a number of children that are already identified that are going to be entering our system come next school year. If they, through their IEPs, can attend a regular program, it's only going to cost us about $90,000. So of that $133,000, we're going to spend 90 of it anyway, because they're going to go out of district. They're probably going to end up in Hartford. They'll end up on a bus. However, if one of those kids tests special, the tuition could be $63,000, the busing another $30,000, plus the other 5 going to the other area. I don't see any way that we're going to get that done for less than $133,000. I think it would be a bad business decision to spend $300,000 to save $130,000. Another area was $131,000 in technology at the middle school. Also on Friday when we met, we have the $66,000 projected savings if we reduce the secretaries back to FRPs. Now, through our discussions on Friday, we have found out that not all 7 of these positions need to go full-time. That there are 3 of the positions that honestly don't want to go full-time. So if we could save half of that, or almost half of that, anyway. I don't know if you could figure out what we would have. But we don't have to move them all back. Because like the position at the front door down here to let the students in, there aren't going to be any students in the summer. There really isn't a reason for that person to be there in the summer. There was a couple of the elementary schools that didn't need the full-time positions in the summer. So we knew of at least 3. It might have been 4, but at least 3. So these were the administration and leadership suggested reductions. Discussion? We're not under an action item yet.
I would like to consider reducing for the new position filled for the Director of Student Services to turn that into a truly HR position with a cap of $70,000 on the salary, not the $120,000 that we're at, and move the 504 responsibilities over to the Assistant Superintendent duties.
been no collusion on this, but that, I was going in the same direction, but with an even more radical approach to consider. The role, the key responsibilities of this position now, as Mr. Johnson's retiring, what are the key responsibilities of this position? How do you define it?
Is everything dealing with students' policy?
Right. Here's what I was thinking.
Wait, bargaining, or,
Yep.
no?
Yep.
Okay.
Grievances?
Grievances,
Policy.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
never mind, that's enough. Here's what I'm thinking. What do we pay Shipman and Goodwin? What's our yearly contract with them?
It's hourly.
Hourly. Approximately, what's in the budget for that?
100,000's in the budget.
100,000, okay. This position was approximately 120, 220. What I'm thinking is this. When the vast amount of what happens in this position is circumscribed by legal considerations. I'm wondering if we don't think about basically taking this opportunity to fill this position with a lawyer who knows education. And basically that becomes a lawyer for the board. And this goes away. And basically we have a staff lawyer now. Who basically, negotiations, we largely rely on legal expertise. It's very limited. There's very little discretion what this can do outside of getting a legal opinion on policy, a legal opinion on behavior. Maybe it's time we got, if you're a young lawyer who was getting well-versed in education on the road, somebody might consider this as a career move. I think you can kill two birds with one stone. I think it's time we consider having a full-time lawyer on staff. I think this job is largely defined by legal considerations, and maybe we can save a fair amount of money doing that. This is really a child here.
Just a couple of years ago, we went through this whole process.
Yeah.
I don't know what year that was for you, Don. So we went through that whole process. The board didn't seem to want to go in that direction, or maybe the superintendent at the time didn't want to go in that.
Board vote.
I understand it was a board vote, but it was clearly influenced by the superintendent at that time. I like the concept as approached by Mr. Cavanero. I just think it's kind of, to put it together in a 5-minute discussion of this budget, it certainly would have been a much, I think it's a more in-depth conversation, and is the board willing to actually go in that direction based on the fact that this board at that time didn't want to go in that direction. I'm in favor of going in that, I was in favor of going in that direction a couple of years ago, but that's just my concept of what we're doing right now.
I just want to remind the board that of that 100,000 that we have in the budget, it's not just for the board's attorney, it's also for administration, because we need to be represented by an attorney every time we go into the expulsion hearing.
Well, if
It
you
can't
want
be
to,
the same attorney.
Pardon?
It can't be the same
No,
attorney.
no.
but I mean, if you want to break out the numbers for us, what the percentage was.
Yeah, we've done that several times. But it's also a special ed lawyer versus a legal
Right.
law. I mean, there's all different types of,
We
we went through this process.
truly would need an education, someone who's well-versed in education law.
And I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying, say the number's $100,000, how much of that $100,000 is having to have a specific lawyer for the special ed?
But you're probably looking at like 30% special ed,
So that-
35 to 40% us, and 25 to 30% being the administration's attorney and expulsion.
We're at like $60,000 we're projecting in legal fees just for our expulsion hearings.
Time you
Well,
finish.
25% of 100,000 is not 60.
No, you said something, your numbers
I said
were.
40% is ours through policy, personnel,
So that's
contracts,
40,000.
expulsions. Yeah, the superintendent's portion to be represented at expulsion hearings and other legal events is probably 20 to 25,000. Well, then there's the special ed attorney, which handles all your IEPs and all that. That's probably another 30 to 40,000.
Not a good year.
So aren't there considerations that you make where you don't use an attorney where you would like to, but there's just, because of budgetary concerns, you don't? Do you find that there's situations where you would?
Yes, anytime you can check with an attorney when you're dealing with specific things, it makes it easier. I mean, even our.
Well, we had a problem. The reason we went to one legal service was to get away from the fact that we needed a special ed attorney, we needed a contract attorney, we needed a legal attorney, so we went to one house to get it all. If you were to hire one in-house attorney, would they be a specialist in special ed, contract negotiation, and policy law? It would be pretty hard to find that person, I would think.
Well, initially, but I think over time, you would, as this person's salary increases, those are just areas of expertise that expand like in any profession, And if there were specific, really very specific areas where that person, he or she had to go out, then they go out, But in the meantime, there's somebody here. I mean, there just seems like so many little things that we have to do, that we have to run to an attorney. You write a letter to the editor, you gotta run it to the attorney, run it to the attorney.
You're right.
You're right. And I think we can dual function this job.
We did reach out to Shipman and Goodwin
Yeah.
to try to secure the services of Jessica Ritter
Yeah.
on 3-day-a-week basis to fill Bill's position, and they said absolutely not. They were not willing to part with her from her other jobs.
Yeah, right, you can't double bill them, so.
Right. Can't bill them 15-minute increments.
Yeah.
So logistically, I'm in favor of I'm in favor of the concept of what you're doing, but put it together, the numbers for us of how you would go, what are our numbers to do what you're saying? You're talking of eliminating a $120,000 position, adding an attorney to do that position and an attorney's position, combining both of them so that it would be $120,000 for what we now have on the books at approximately $220,000.
That was his proposal.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm totally in
But-
favor of that.
But again, you can't take the $100,000 of legal expense and put it to that, because part of that is the attorney that represents the administration.
Right.
So that can't be the same attorney that represents us, so you
So
can't say
we would
220.
we would reduce that $100,000 line item by $40,000. And then,
Increase Bill's position based on the standard rate of an attorney, $200 an hour. In private practice, up to about $416,000.
No.
For a 40-hour work week, 52 weeks a year.
we had people who interviewed who were more than willing to do the job between $80,000 and $100,000.
Interviewing and being willing to do the job and being qualified to do all the jobs involved here is very different.
Well, the important question is, we have to vote on a budget tonight.
I know.
And there's absolutely no way we're gonna have all that wrung out
I know.
in the next 2.5 hours. So that's an interesting proposal for next year, because all of the administrative positions are one-year contracts. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't research that during the year and
I agree.
and make that move. I mean, that's definitely something we can look at.
Okay.
If we were to combine your thought with Fiona's thought, and you got just an HR person and put the 504 under the assistant superintendent's responsibilities, and then looked into it.
Yeah,
you could-
I think that,
you know, I mean,
that's the way we should
You
go.
could marry the two thoughts.
I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
Is that doable?
Put the 504 under it used to be underneath the principal in the building, the 504 plans. So,
Let's,
yes.
someone jotted down Bill's responsibilities.
Not Bill.
It wasn't. I'd like to look at those.
Well, I'll tell you what, well, now that we're not negotiating a contract, maybe let's go down the list. School climate coordinator, team and teacher orientation coordinator, student teacher, he's in charge of student teachers, he's in charge of policy, 504, all personnel issues, hiring, certification, contracts, grievances, and supervision of special ed.
And when we talk about certification subs, and when we talk
That was in there. Policy was
Nurses.
number 4.
subs, nurses, and also the whole piece with certification is
Nurses.
dealing with the state
Subs.
when hiring people and certified and what they need to become certified and getting temporary certification if we need be, dealing with the state.
That's all you did?
Is
Yeah.
golfing in there?
What's that?
Is golfing in there?
Yes.
We'll add that right now. That's on the list.
You know your fair game until 2:30.
Yeah, I know.
Get your shots. Chris, any comments on this?
I'm curious, Mr. Jocelyn, if you have any suggestions.
Well, you know, it's intriguing because so much of what I do is become legal-based, and I try to, brush up as much as I can on the law, but, there are times when we do have to have it checked out by an attorney just to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a tough situation. So I can understand that way of thinking. The value added of having somebody that does education and has been in education is that you've worked with teachers, you've worked with principals, you know how schools operate. My experience has helped when a question comes up, based on what I've experienced, and I've been able to give that advice as well, which isn't in my job description, but it's something that we do. And I certainly see it as why the board would be looking in that direction. Certainly 504, supervising and taking care of student teachers, things of that nature are more education related, less law related. But it has become complex, and I did sit on the interviews for a one attorney setup, and even the people that the lawyers that we talked to that might have been interested in that role mentioned themselves that they would likely need to consult with other attorneys in some cases. So when you consult with other attorneys, we're back into a situation where there's fees for that consultation. So until that person gets up to speed in a wide variety of areas, there may be additional costs on top of that person's salary, legal fees. So, that was, my recollection is that was one of the main reasons we went with Shippen, because it's so diversified, from FOI to certification law to labor law to taxes, contracts, that we were concerned that if we hired one person and then they started consulting with other attorneys, we'd spend as much, if not more.
How do you feel about the owner's proposal with having an HR person and a separate education person?
I think that makes sense from the standpoint that HR is very specialized. You have to know FMLA, you have to know workers' comp, you have to be able to negotiate, you have to be able to read contracts, things of that nature, and HR professionals do that all the time. So, yeah, I think that makes sense. There are really good people there that specialize in HR work. I was a former administrator, former teacher, former principal, who had to get up to speed on the HR part of things. So you would right away hit the ground running with somebody that really knows that stuff.
Do you feel that would be a full-time position if we were to do that?
Full-time HR, given the list that you just heard, I think you probably could fill in a full week just with HR if you're doing it properly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments on the other cuts? It's not just about.
Oh,
We're discussing the whole
Everything.
reduction
No.
package. We're not just discussing, they just were, their comments on the reduction was about the HR position. John?
These cuts look punitive, especially the way we're framing it from the beginning by looking at the administrators giving up what is essentially a bonus. As I recall the way that contract is structured, they're giving up a bonus, which is 1% on top of their salary.
The same was asked of all the bargaining units. Was
To
to
give
give
up.
longevity as a bonus on top of their salary. Stipends are a bonus on top of their salary. Didn't ask anybody to take a salary reduction.
Yeah, I'm guessing that that's a considerably more important part of their economic outlook than this bonus is to the administrators. The other thing is administrators have a lot more at stake in being compliant with what's going on. They're looking for recommendations for their next job, for instance. They're looking at favorable attention from the administration in Michigan Avenue. Something that maybe the others aren't as concerned with. I don't like the punitive nature, the appearance, punitive appearance of these cuts. Yeah, I know we have to make cuts, but I'm not sure we want to take it, I'm not sure we want to take them all off the backs of our personnel. For instance, the response to intervention people, those are going to be new hires, right? They're not here. We're talking about preserving, we're going to cut the TAG program.
Those are mandated, and this is the last year of, they were mandated 3 years ago, and they've just been pushed off, pushed off, pushed off. We're in the last year.
So we have to put those people at those salaries into the budget.
Yep.
Okay.
That was why, I mean, it would be an easy one, and that was, but that's the reason for the tag and the instrumental music, is you're not technically laying someone off, you're just not backfilling a vacated position. And if efficiencies were found within, say, the teaching ranks, then someone could be the tag teacher if you had, you know, when we finish the realignment of the investigation of the courses at the high school, and we look at, we might find a body that's available, if, you know, when a scheduling is re-looked at, that tag may be able to be refilled. So identifying it as tag is really just to say, we're not backfilling that retirement.
Yeah, well, we're calling it refiguring instead of eliminating the tag teacher, which has bothered me from the beginning about that. The ESL tutor at Southwest is the person who's already here.
No. That's a proposed addition.
Pre-K teacher and 3K carers are already here?
No.
Oh. Okay. So then I would
Those are special
suggest.
ed, that's a special education.
Well, they're not mandated, right?
They're going to be, because we have 6 identified students that are gonna come to us in the spring.
These are the students that you were talking about before.
We're going to face, if they have a basic program, we're looking at a minimum of 90,000 to send them out. If any one of them has special needs, we could be facing who knows what.
But we know we have kids who will be in tag next year with a tag teacher if we fill that position. Those kids have been identified too.
Not yet. They're in the process. Our fourth, go to fifth have been identified.
Okay.
We're looking at our fourth.
The process to that, or the thought behind that, is that the current in-classroom teacher that has an advanced study will have the resources available to them to give that child enrichment, but it won't be in a separate classroom. They won't be taken and bussed from one school to another and then given the enrichment. We still have the materials for the program in the budget. It would be available to the existing classroom teachers. They would have access to it to enrich the kid in the classroom he's already in, or she's already in.
In addition to all of the other supplementations they're supposed to make for all of their other kids, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm looking at the middle school sports program as something we could easily get rid of too. I don't want to get rid of people, I don't want to get rid of programs, and I don't want to call it reconfigure if we're really eliminating. To be honest about that.
Well, the reconfiguration was to have the classroom teachers use these supplies to provide the tag enrichment.
But basically you're eliminating the tag program and saying the teachers can if they wish, or if they can, or if they have the time.
Well, no, if the child was identified, they'd have it. Because it's still an identified child, no different.
No, they wouldn't have to, the state doesn't require us to. We might require them to, but the state doesn't.
We have to identify, we do not have to service.
Special ed kids, but not tag kids.
No, the other way around. We have to identify students who are talented and gifted, but we do not have the
Right.
service.
Thank you.
Chris?
No, we were just talking about HR before.
No, it was actually the whole list.
The classroom teacher, we identified if that's primary or secondary? Well,
Not yet.
the secretary is an FRP, or is that a secretary salary, or is that an FRP salary?
These salaries are net. You have unemployment, you have insurance benefit requirements, this is the net savings.
So we're going to, I'm just asking though, is it, it's a 12-month, not an FRP that's being elected?
It was a CO, right? It's a central office.
And the plan that Mr. Becerra lined out for us seemed to rely heavily on not losing an additional custodian. So I'm just wondering how that would impact the entire reconfiguration of our custodial staff that we saw that presentation for.
He wants to know if you can survive with yet one less custodian in your
Well, as I understood,
reorganization.
Dave, I mean, how you presented it and the split shift for the.
The way we presented it last time was, we had exactly 30 FTEs.
Right.
And we narrowed it down as closely as I felt that we could really, do it and properly service the buildings.
Right.
And so it would be a difficulty to accept another loss.
Well, difficulty for sure, but could you continue to have that plan? I mean, that reconfiguration sounded really beneficial to the district for a lot of reasons. And I'm just wondering, can you still go forward with that with one less staff member? It'll be harder, but can that, or will that eliminate that reconfiguration of outline?
It'll have to change it somehow. I will have to go back and I'll have to figure out how to reconfigure the reconfiguration. Because, once again, I based it on certain hours and, and times, how much work can be done here, there, and everywhere, so I would really have to go back and refigure. Possibly could be done, but once again, somewhere, the problem is with that, the buildings don't get any smaller, and the grounds don't get any less, so,
But the number of students we have isn't getting any less either, so you have to decide classroom, custodian. We really have three things that we have. We have utilities, we have staff, and we have, I just had it just left the top of my head. Ben? No, because that's your staff, We're down to like nowhere left to cut. You have your transportation, you have your utilities, you have your staff. That's kind of what's left in the budget. We don't give the supplies to the schools, we don't give the, there's not a lot left.
I guess I just want, to me, we're losing one classroom teacher. I'd like to know if administration has some idea where that might be, because if it's at the high school, that might push me to vote for something else, for
It'd
example.
probably be on the elementary level.
Okay. I don't have any more questions for you.
Thank you.
If you want to sit down. The tag program, I'm with John on this, that I think, and I don't know if it's combining Fiona's idea, but I think taking the talented or the designated flagged kid out of the classroom is that's what that program's all about. To say, here's the supplies, you can do it in the classroom, then it's not tagged. It just isn't at all. Instrumental music, if they're saying we can do it, if the music department is on board with that they're saying they can do it, I think that's good. TMS athletics, I think that can go at that point. You can still Torrington youth soccer, for example. I don't like the idea of eliminating the prepaid. The technology, hardware, and software, is that even possible given what we have to do? I mean, I see it's an identified alternative, but we have to upgrade the technology. So is it just, this is a one-year fix for that? Is it gonna fall behind and next year we have to spend twice as much to do it?
Well, you'll fall behind.
Oh, obviously, but I mean, is it just going to compound itself? Are we going to be able to be ready for this summer if that is an alternative cut that we?
Maybe. We're working feverishly every day on
I
technology.
should have a better answer. By July 1st.
So and what's the savings then for preserving the 3 FRPs that want to stay FRP?
$28,000.
$28,000. A little bit of leeway. Okay. That's all I have.
John?
The administrator that we were talking about, is this someone who's already on staff who would be cut, or someone who's been put into the budget who would not be hired?
This was someone already on staff.
So we would have fewer administrators in the buildings next year if we don't accept this.
Ben?
I know I'm sitting in the worst place possible for this, and this probably won't be popular in the audience either. And I don't want to make a single cut anywhere, but we're stuck with having to cut something. If, from my understanding, the Latin program teacher has not been filled yet, hasn't it?
We have someone filling in, certified teacher that is not planning on returning next year.
So we had a program that was catering to 5 or 6 students. That last handout that we had that showed a breakdown for classroom size.
Well, there was a reason there weren't 14 kids who started in that.
Yeah. Many dropped out.
Yeah. No, that was a class, that was a full-size class.
It was a full class?
Yeah.
Now, those, you need to look at years of Latin classes. You know, documentation should be presented to the board with the last 5 years of student enrollment in the Latin program.
During budget,
Sure,
we were given.
You gave us 1 year this year. You didn't give us 5 years of the Latin classes. These are the numbers that were presented. If you had stronger numbers, then it should have been presented. I'm totally in favor of what Mr. Morel is saying about the Latin program as a source of cut. Just based on the numbers. I mean, it's your numbers. It's your, you know, if you wanted to present it in a stronger manner, then you should give us better numbers, 2, 3, 5 years, to show that this enrollment was just a one-time situation, not a year in and year out.
What would be the cost associated with that? It's top step.
It'd be 1 teacher.
But a top
One
step,
teacher's
huh?
full-time?
It's a full-time teacher.
83,000.
Well, no, minus, you'd be at 50,000 that you carry for the cut of the teacher, because you're gonna pay
No, it's not.
employment.
Well, no, but she's not,
Yeah.
she's leaving on
Oh.
her own. She's, that's.
That'd be
get them
similar to the
into
tax
the-
position.
Exactly.
And how much is this board willing to take away from the gifted kids in this district? I
I agree, you wanna put tags back in, but you wanna
That's
take
what-
away from the kids going to the medical field, the science fields.
And some colleges require it, so
You
what are
know,
these kids supposed to do?
Yeah, I think, again, I think this board has got to make decisions based on where we want to drive our students. And again, I'm not willing to give up on Latin. I mean, I've seen what it has done for my children, and I just think, you know, I had the advantage of going to college, and I recognize that's important, and a lot of parents today don't have that opportunity, and I think it behooves our administrators and our counselors to push kids into these classes, even though they don't want to take them, because the upside, the benefit to them down the road is enormous, you know? I'm just, quite frankly, and I think this board, and I think all of us should be appalled by how many students are graduating from high school who simply cannot write. They simply cannot express themselves. And I don't care what profession, I don't care what profession you go in, just conducting your life in a way that represents you and your family well, and that garners respect for you in the way you present yourself in public. These are essential life skills. And Latin is at the core of our language and our formulation and presentation of ideas. I think instead of cutting it, we just need to find a way to keep it, number one, to expand it, number two, and to push kids into it with the idea that, like geometry and algebra, you may not like it, but this stuff has been part of a core curriculum for a long time because it ultimately is good for you. So no, I don't support cutting Latin at all.
I think in picking which classroom teacher it's going to be, I think that's really an administrative decision. I think that's what we hire them to do. As far as where they could live down one secretary, administration felt they could live down one custodian, a para, a nurse, a CAF worker. I mean, a lot of thought has gone into these. It wasn't just, hey, let's list them on a sheet of paper. We did sit down with the bargaining units to try to avoid all of this. It was avoidable. The situation we're at is right now we need, by the end of the night, $488,507 approved to be cut. We don't have a vast computer system sitting behind us to regurgitate a lot of financial data and backup. We just have, they felt that they could live with these reductions. This is the administration's proposal to make these reductions. Changes happen all year long, every year. If things are found, I'm going to come back. If things are found, then we can refill or boost or bolster these positions. But we have about 10 projects in the fire right now. We're looking at the classes at the high school and the effective use of them. We're looking at the realignment of secondary education. We're looking at the reconfiguration of the TAG program. We have the music people that brought in. I mean, for us to sit here and say, no, I want that classroom teacher, I want this classroom teacher, I think we're going beyond what our job is. I think we have to get back to say, this is, we give them, we approve a curriculum, and they have to staff it. And based on enrollment, they staff it the best that they can.
I agree, but I'm not asking to cut a specific teacher. I think that if we can save an arbitrary teacher here, and the TAG program, and athletics, to be perfectly honest, in my opinion, if we can do that with a program that's servicing a smaller percentage of students, whatever that percentage may be, compared to the rest of the classes, and maybe we can offer it as an online class. I don't know. I mean, trust me, I don't want to make cuts. I agree with you. I'd much rather expand. If the city would do a better job of building our grant list, we wouldn't have to have this conversation, but we are. So we're in a terrible situation. I don't want to talk about, oh, well, we don't like this teacher, obviously we can't do that. But if we can eliminate a program and save others that may or may not be more essential in the opinion of the board, I'm for having that discussion.
I don't want to see TAG eliminated. I don't want to see the guidance counselor again with Fiona. I agree with her on maybe reorganizing and getting an HR person. And if we could save on the HR person, save on the secretaries, then we could keep the TAG and the guidance.
Do you want to approve the budget on a hypothetical, or do you want to take the reduction and if the savings can be found, reinstitute the position? I mean, we don't know what we're going to get for HR people. We haven't had the interviews yet. So for us to say we're going to hire for 70 and nobody applies that's willing to work in that range in this field, then what do you do? And then you're right back where we are. I mean, we could put a list of, if we find savings, we can bump things back in, but we have to make a decision of what we want. We don't know what we can save with the HR position. We haven't interviewed yet. We can do it. Then we have to make that decision after the school's done. Andrew?
If you go back to your know each one of these are in their own little bargaining groups, but it's a secretary, a custodian, a para, a nurse, a cafe worker. It's $170,000 approximately for 5 jobs. What is that entire group of workers, their entire budget?
Which
Is
one?
it 2 million, 3 million that we pay for secretaries and stuff? I mean, it seems like we're picking at it, that small quasi-bargaining group, a much more disproportionate amount of dollar cuts and definitely personnel cuts than is merited by the 1% that the administrators get.
They all bargain independently.
Well, but they're all part of that negotiation group.
They're all part of Torrington Public Schools. Where do you want to draw the umbrella?
Well, I'm trying to say, I'd rather keep 5 jobs and eliminate 1 than, I assume 5 different positions probably are as productive or not more productive than 1 administrator. I mean, just to give them some type of reward that we're not gonna eliminate a $120,000 position because they gave up 19,000, and we're gonna take 170,000 out of this group.
105.
What?
The position was 105,000.
The administrator?
How do we determine that?
Because that was the salary of
Administrator
the administrator that
would be top.
was going to be
No,
called.
it's not amazing.
Yep.
And every bargaining unit was given an opportunity to come forward with something. The administrator's the only one that came forward with anything.
But did you tell them that they could save 5 jobs if they came up with 1%?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, it's not even 1% because they get 100% salary. This is a 1% bonus, so we're really looking at 101%. And there's no such thing, but it could be looked at.
But
Well,
that
part of the-
SMART goal was put in place because they took zeros, which is why we arrived at that. And the paras, I think, were the only other ones that did take zeros.
Dan.
At this point, this is getting very dirty for the board to be looking at what individual classrooms we want to be saving. I have no problem approving the reduction because, well, it's the budget we were given from the city. If we want to start getting down into nitty-gritty of telling administration exactly which positions we want them to save and which programs we want them to save, I think that gets down to a much greater discussion of, okay, are we gonna take a look at every single school, every grade level, and go grade by grade to see which one do we want? We know we have to remove $488,000 out of our budget. That's a given. If we vote to approve the reduction of 488, then we've done our job for the city. From there, whether we want to take and go through and hand pick a recommendation to the superintendent, I think unless there's a glaring issue that we have with a particular area, I think that's getting a little too much into overly managing the district.
So do you support this?
I support the initial cut of the 48,000. As far as where the actual cuts come from, I would prefer to see in another meeting the superintendent's, okay, this is where we're going to be cutting as of July 1 at our June meeting. If we're going to make recommendations for where we'd like to see those cuts come from at that point, I'd rather see us make our recommendations. But in the end, as far as I knew, it was still not the board's purview to make the final cut. It is still up to the superintendent. We can only make our recommendations and then weigh in on the superintendent for how we feel about those cuts. Or realignment. But, again, whether or not we want to sit down and try to initially nitpick where we want her to look at this point is, again, I think more of a micromanaging versus saying, okay, yes, we're approving the cut because we have to. Where the cuts come from, I'd rather see give her the month to come up with and say, okay, here's where the final cuts are coming from. And if we have to say, no, that's not the right place to cut, we want to cut, let's say, 3 secretaries, and I'm not picking on secretaries, 3 secretaries versus a teacher. And we want to turn around and say, no, we don't want to cut any secretaries, we want to cut 2 pairs. Or no, we don't want to cut any pairs, we want to cut a building administrator at that point.
This is what that is though, right? Isn't it? You've done that, yeah.
It's the general concept that they have, and this is where she's saying she feels comfortable as far as being the superintendent.
Right.
The problem that I have is we're getting down to, we want her to tell us every single classroom that this is going to be affected, every secretary position that this is going to affect, where each position is going to come from. And I'm not sure that's our job to say, well, tell me what custodian's going to be cut, what building, and then I'll tell you whether or not I want to cut a
I
custodian.
mean, that wasn't my intent, if that's what
No.
you're referring, yeah, I
No,
agree
I'm
with you,
just,
but I.
again, the board as a whole is starting to go around saying, okay, we have other ideas for cuts. That's great. I think we should sit down and take a look at it. I think, agreed, I would think Bill's position, HR should be removed from it. There's not a discussion in that. But to sit there and say, well, we think we can readjust funding for it until we hire somebody for that position, I'm not sure you have a number to work with. You have a guesstimate for a number. So at this point,
Everybody have a sheet of paper? Here's another suggestion from the administrator. Remove the guidance counselor. Remove TMS athletics. Take the reduction in instrumental music. Remove